All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for this event and being patient while we get started. Just a quick note, if you are a CDU student, there is a quick survey we'll ask you to complete, and I'll share my screen in a moment. But we have some awesome panelists here today to get started on this discussion. There is a Q&A function that you all can use if you have questions throughout this program and you want to get follow-up information from the panelists, please use it. And we'll make sure to get to your questions at the end of the presentation. So if you are a CDU student, I'm going to share my screen very quickly. And it's a quick survey that's anonymous. It takes like 1 to 2 minutes. And it's this pre-survey over here, so you can scan the QR code and access it. So I'll give people about till 12:08 to complete it, and then we'll introduce the panelists, will introduce themselves, and then we'll get started with the discussion. So in 2 minutes, we'll get started. And if you're a CDU student, please scan this QR code to complete this survey. And then once this discussion is over, we'll follow up with the students and have you all post the post survey. But it's completely anonymous, takes about a minute. Okay, so yeah, if you're just joining us and a CDU student, please complete this pre-survey. You can scan the QR code on the screen. It takes about 1 minute. And at 12:08, we're going to get started. Okay, so 12:08, I'm going to stop sharing. And Courtney has joined us, our moderator.
Awesome. Good to be with you all. Good to see you.
Awesome to see you again, Courtney.
Thank you.
So yeah, if you are able to kind of introduce our panelists very quickly, and then I'll let you get started and get the show rolling.
Of course. So good to be with you all, panelists. Thank you so much for being here for this pretty momentous discussion, really, and it's an ongoing conversation around Black History Month, but also an ongoing conversation around Black wellness, healing, and the intersecting narratives that impact the Black community, mental health and wellness. So we've got 4 panelists with us today. Kirsten Panel, who is with UMA Community Clinic. Successful Brem, who is with the Minority Psychology Network, and would love to hear more about her work. And I think through these questions, we'll learn quite a bit about our panelists. And then also Chandler Norton, who is with Los Angeles County. He's got an amazing background in mental health and is a part of the Speakers Bureau from LA County. There's so much. I was looking over your bios, and there's so much richness and depth and commitment and history here, with an eye on the future, and also most importantly, how to support our folks today. So I'd like to just welcome you all to the panel, have you give just sort of a brief background of, what brought you to the work, and then we'll jump into the questions. Let's start first with Kirsten, and then we'll move to Successful, and then Chandler, and then David.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Peace and blessings to you all. I hope everyone is in well spirits and better health while joining this webinar today. My name is Kirsten Pennell. I am a wellness coordinator for UMA Community Clinics Black Visions of Wellness program. And what we do is we offer non-traditional services with a focus on the African and African American community, particularly for those who suffer from substance abuse, mental health illnesses, and ongoing chronic conditions. We provide them a safe haven and a health network just to aid in their healing process. And I'm happy to be here with you all today.
Thank you. Good to have you.
Hi, my name is Successful Brim. I'm the CEO and founder of the Minority Psychology Network. So what we do is we are a network of mental health providers and advocates who give mental health resources to minority communities. We have been around for about 3 years now, but we made a lot of significant moves throughout the years. We have an app you can download. It's MPN. You type that in your app store. We're building a directory of minority mental health professionals. We also have a mobile unit, which is essentially therapy on wheels. It's getting renovated right now, but we are going to go into minority communities to give mental health resources and also have limited talk therapy. We recently just partnered with the NFL Alumni Association, and we were in Phoenix not too long ago with their players, and we did a panel discussion about sports and mental health. And we have about 9 committees. We talk about spirituality and mental health, education and mental health. I just mentioned sports and mental health, just so many different aspects of mental health. We are a national organization. We have members that are in Texas, here in California, New York, DC, Virginia, Florida, all over. And yeah, I think that's a little bit about us. So I'm just really happy to be here.
Good to have you.
I think I'm next. Yeah, here we go. So my name is Chandler Norton. I work for the Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health. We serve 1 billion clients a year, somewhere around that. And I'm also part of the Speakers Bureau. I am a former athlete, so I do understand what wonderful panelists discussed the NFL. I played Division I football, and that led me to we had a suicide in my family, and he was actually a professional athlete, and that kind of changed my course into getting mental health. I have around 25 years experience of working in mental health. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I do private work in the evening as well. And I'm also in my final year PhD candidate at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology.
And welcome, Chandler. And David
Thanks.
Lee, my apologies if I missed out in the introduction. I had a great opportunity to meet you, and your background is amazing. I've looked at some of the travel that you've done as a part of some of your HIV advocacy work and healthcare. So I'd love for you to give that rich background that you have as well as a part of your work now with APLA Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Courtney, and thanks for inviting me. My name is David Lee. I'm the clinic director for the APLA Health and Wellness facility here on the campus of Charles R. Drew University. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. Most of my work has been in HIV/AIDS. I served as the associate director of the HIV programs at Charles R. Drew University prior to coming here. And just really glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you, David. And thank you all. And our audience must know that we have such a distinguished, knowledgeable, and committed panelists of community members, sisters, brothers, and professionals that are moving forward this work and have done so much in the past and moving the work forward. Before we jump into our questions, I just kind of want to frame them a little bit for you. We've got about 8 questions, and I know we have a short period of time together, but I do want you to know that we're kind of looking sort of like personal experiences with mental health, behavioral health, and wellness, as well as professional aspects of that same topic, and also, you know, the community, and kind of looking forward, I should say. There's a question that really allows for us to dig in deep about sort of reimagining, if I can say, together, Black mental health and wellness. So I invite the panelists to think through some of that as we just embark on our first question. And, you know, I will chime in as needed. But our first question, what is your personal experience accessing wellness services? And what kind of impact did it have on you? And maybe we can start with Kirsten.
Yes, well, my personal experience with access to mental health has been a long one. As we know, a lot of things are passed down generational, and it's been a process for me. I would say at the age of 12, maybe 13, my younger brother, he was 8 years old, he was murdered due to gun violence. And that's when I really figured out what mental health was. I didn't have a specific idea, but I knew that I was going through something. And I was challenged with that task, going through different things, breaking out, being in what you would call maybe a structured teen. I would get in trouble at school due to that, and no one took the time to really dive in and see what was going on. No school counselors within our community. My mom didn't put me in therapy for it. Nothing of that sort. And it took me years to actually work through and see what my traumas were in order for me to seek out mental health assistance. It wasn't until I was in college and able to get out into the world on my own where I really realized that I truly needed help dealing with everything that I was experiencing in life and had been going through. And that's when I start seeking professional help through my college experience, a predominantly Black experience in college. So I was able to access things that I weren't able to access prior to. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, and we don't have a lot of representation there as far as, you know, our color and medical service and things of that sort. So it took me to branch off to really dive into my mental health awareness.
Thank you, Kirsten. And I'm curious, Successful, how do you connect with what Kirsten said? Do you identify with any of that? And what's your unique journey to this path based on services that you were provided or not provided?
Oh yeah, I can definitely understand. It's growing up, of course, in our community, we really didn't speak about mental health at all. And growing up in the church too, I'm originally from the South, just hearing, you know, when you see people, you know, they may say, oh, they're demon possessed, or, you know, something's wrong with them, just pray for them. So I just realized, you know, that's a huge problem, because obviously there's something, you know, wrong. And I do remember when I went to college, I went to Howard University in DC, and I'm originally from Texas. So, you know, being away from home, that definitely played a factor in my mental health. So I wanted to reach out to the student services to see if there was anybody that I could speak to. And fortunately, there was a student at the counseling center where I realized that you can actually speak to students who are studying to be mental health professionals, or they can also outsource you to therapists. So I thought that was, you know, very convenient, but I noticed a lot of students didn't know that that was accessible. And even today, some colleges don't even have that type of accessibility on their campus.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to pass the baton to Chandler. And, in what ways do you connect with what Kirsten and Successful stated about their experience, and what makes your also experience unique?
Yeah, I thank you for allowing me to be here. And I think I'll start off with I was always fascinated with wanting to help others, more specifically, people that look like me, vulnerable populations, growing up in the ghetto, seeing the systematic negative impact on Black men, Black women, people of color, because I'm an '80s person. I was born in the '70s, so there was no separation. Black and brown, we was together in the classroom, and so I had a profound impact when my father left when I was 2 years old, and seeing a lot of my cousins involved in gang violence and drugs. And then I had an opportunity. I went to Verbum Day here in Los Angeles, and then I had an opportunity to get a football scholarship and go to Oklahoma. And at that point in time, we lost my uncle to suicide. And so that was profoundly impactful to not only myself, but my family, as he was the uncle that everybody strived to be, strong. He had these thighs. When you look at him, you're just like, oh my gosh, I want to be like him. And then he was in trouble, depression, anxiety, to the point where he took his own life. And so that really led me to understanding how are we so severely impacted by violence, by mental health symptoms and problems, and why aren't we getting help? And I was able to go to, in my grad school, I went to National University, and we had marriage and family therapy. And part of our training was, you have to do 40 hours of personal psychotherapy. Okay. So even with all this happening, I thought I was too cool for that. I'm like, what? I'm a student, man. I don't need no help. And they said, well, we don't care. You got to do 20 hours in the beginning and 20 hours during practicum. And let me tell you, it had a profound effect on my life because we all got issues. And it really helped me understand how your environment, your caregivers, stressors, it all impacts your personality, how you see the world, how you internalize things, and how you spit it out and behave. And it really shifted how I saw seeking help and getting better. So that is really one of the greatest experiences that helped turn my life around.
Thank you, Chandler. That's rich. And David, I would imagine you can connect with all of our other panelists in some ways and also provide your own unique experience as well.
Yes, absolutely. I was sitting here thinking about my experience as a student. I did my graduate work at University of Washington in Seattle. And at the time, I was a graduate student. I was doing a concurrent degree program, Master of Public Health, Master of Social Work. I was working full time. My relationship at the time started falling apart. And I reached out to the Health and Wellness Center at the university. And, one of my biggest things about reaching out was a fear of, am I going to get connected with a therapist who understands who I am, or sensitive to my needs, and especially for me being a member of the LGBTQ community. And fortunately, I got the perfect therapist at the time who was sensitive to my needs, because and I would say this to other people, if it's important that your therapist be similar to you in race or gender or sexual orientation or other characteristics, that's they're out there. And that's what was important to me, to really connect with someone who I felt was going to be non-judgmental. um, and I was able, and so that's what drove. It wasn't my first experience with psychotherapy, but I just recall that time in my life, being a student, and I know we have a lot of students on in this workshop. And so, I would say don't hesitate, to reach out. Your health and wellness center, folks in this room are available to you. And so are we at APLA Health, because we have a mental health program also. That was real important to me. And so, I just say that because I think my hesitancy was always, am I going to find somebody I can connect with and understand me? And those folks are out there. And I would say if necessary, folks should seek them out.
Thank you. I would imagine, our students in this workshop today or webinar today is totally connect with each of you in their own unique way. And probably also hear some of the themes, right? Sometimes it was a need that you had in your own community and within your own self that drove you to the work also. And we'll talk a little bit more about the professional aspect of it. But there's also something around stigma, I think, that we heard quite a bit in each of your sort of brief stories about your experience. What do you think about, from an organizational perspective, like one step that we can do, and particularly thinking about here at Drew, one step an organization can do, we as an organization, as departments and individuals that support students, what is one thing that we can do to kind of eliminate those barriers and to reduce or abolish that stigma? Can we hear from you first, Kirsten?
Yes, ma'am. With getting rid of those stigmas, I believe a lot of what Mr. Lee just spoke about, and that is finding someone that you can connect with in regards to a student as well as in regards to the organization. Being mindful of who you're interviewing and who you're talking to in regards to that position is very imperative. A lot of the times we have people who are in mental health because it's just there, it's open, it's a job, right? But we know that people within the community need something more than that. They need to be guided and they need to be led into this path of healing because it's something they haven't seen before. In regards to normally we call it the strong Black woman trope, but it's a strong Black trope, right? Where we carry everything on our shoulders, we hold it in, we have to toughen up, keep our chin up, don't cry. And it's a tough thing to handle. And it's kind of almost normalized within our communities. So it's very imperative, again, to have someone within these organizational spaces that is able to connect with that, grasp it, and then help the students and community break it down in order to heal from that.
Thank you, Kirsten. Anyone else want to jump in after that? You might have thoughts that intersect with that.
Oh yeah, I definitely can. I agree with what Kristen is saying. This is pretty much why I started MPN. We are a network of mental health providers and advocates who look like us, and that's what's very important, because a lot of people say, well, I don't want to go to therapy because, they're not going to know my story. They're picturing an older white guy or a white woman, so they feel like they're not going to be able to relate or connect. But then my organization and other organizations, we make sure that you see people that look like you. You don't look at me and think, oh, I bet she's a doctor, So, and that's why a lot of students can connect with that, because they want to be able to have that comfortability. And I would also say, like, normalizing the conversation, having more talks like these. What we do at MPN, we have a lot of these conversations, and we notice, you have some topics where a lot of people will jump on, but then you have some topics where people kind of want to hide a little bit, maybe join the Facebook Live so you can't see them, but that's a part of the stigma, because a lot of people are still trying to, get away from, if I see a therapist, that means I'm crazy, you know, instead of understanding like it's just checking up on your health, like going to the doctor, getting a checkup, physical, things like that. Just being continuous is making sure that your mental health is also intact. So I think that's also, no matter if we got 5 people to join or 10 people to join, just having these conversations helps normalize it.
Thank you, Successful.
Yeah, I would jump in and say I concur with everyone who's already spoken. It's really conversations like this that help normalize health-seeking behaviors, and just saying to our and other folks in the room who might have a friend who might be going through something, and just saying to them, it's okay to, you know, seek out help, and just be supportive of folks. That way we can address the stigma around mental health. And like Successful said, there's a fear that people are crazy or weak. And it's not. It really takes a lot of courage to seek out help when you need it. And so it's actually the opposite. And so I think just continued conversations like this, and agencies and organizations in the community that provide mental health services is going to help us to address stigma related to seeking out mental health services.
Thanks, David. Chandler, thoughts?
Yeah, well, my thing is when I was, kind of told I had to do 40 hours of personal psychotherapy, it was, I felt so much, even though I saw the impact on the community, I felt so much shame. Like I just, I felt vulnerable, like a piece of me was being attacked. And for the first, so I had to see somebody 40 times, right? I had to do the student rate. I had to sit there, make an appointment, seeing how that felt when you're driving, right? It says therapy there. I'm in my car. Is anybody looking, right? So the first 10 sessions, I'm just acting, we talking about everything, Lakers and all kind of stuff. And it was nothing about me. And so the 10 sessions, because if somebody that looked like me, she said, look, we can do another 30 sessions and I can take your money, or you can come in here and get something from it. Because all of us have issues, and all of us are just children who became adults. And if something impacted you from 0 to 7 and you haven't figured it out or had some help, you're going to continue a pattern that could be self-destructive, and it can impact both your physical and mental health. That was profound in me, because I had to learn, being an only child in a single parent household in the ghetto, has an impact on how I see the world, how I see myself, how I interact, how things affect me. So I'm walking around with all this stuff and being triggered by the backfire of a car, because I heard some gunshots, right? Or somebody getting loud, or somebody running and my heart racing, or the cops get behind me. Like, all this is impacted relationships, because I didn't have a father growing up, right? My interpersonal relationships, looking at gang violence. So somebody say something to me, I'm triggered. How am I going to walk around with all this stuff and be a successful student and make it through studying, and then have to go home sometimes and be back in that environment? And I'm just supposed to come back and get good grades? No. And I worked through all that stuff, and it really opened my eyes. It settled me down. I was able to manage my anxiety, right? Get a hold of stuff and be successful. Not 100%, but function in a healthy manner.
Yeah. I mean, each of you're kind of sharing what your experience was, and also what could be another student's experience who were in the same shoes that you were once in, as well as professionals and organizations. How do we show up authentically? How do we show up with our blinders off and really connect directly with the person, and to be truthful about what we're seeing? In your case, Chandler, trying to avoid and evade the deeper conversation Someone just laid it out on the table for you. So this idea of reframing how we think about mental health, how we talk about it, encouraging organizations to have conversations that normalize it, and also ensuring representation is there for the students that we're serving. I want to frame the next two questions, really. I'm going to combine them just for the sake of time, and kind of skip over one for now because you've kind of addressed this one a little bit. But I want to talk a little bit about how over time your thoughts about mental health changed from a professional perspective, like your role in it, in the system, in the community, being a direct service provider has changed, and how that influences your idea about reimagining Black mental health services and structures that serve our community. Who wants to start with that?
I can start. I would say that my personal experience with mental health is my professional experience with mental health. I do have a private practice by the name of Melanated Moments, where I'm a holistic life coach specializing in radical self-care. I'm a mental health first aider, and I do a lot of work within the community, right? I'm a mental health advocate. So with that, it was imperative to me and deeply rooted that my profession had to align with that. There was nothing different that I should be doing. This is what I specialized in. This is what truly meant the world to me. And it was almost as if I could align the two, I would be walking in my life's purpose. With Black Visions of Wellness, it was strange for me to find something that truly connected with my morals. It's very hard to do that. And just the entire backstory of how it came to be, it was actually created by students from Charles Drew University, as well as UCLA in 1992, in light of the Rodney King riots. So just focusing in on that, knowing that there was an issue that was seen within the community and it was taken to make a solution, it let me know that professionally, this is where I needed to be, because this is where the work that I am trying to do is being done.
So creating your own structure, aligning your values.
Yes, ma'am.
Within a structure that you've created for.
Yes, and I would also say it helps me to lead a holistic life because everything is in circle. This is my entire life. I live, breathe, wake. Talking to my son, it's helped me raise my son in a different light from what I've seen, from what I've experienced with my parents, so it's just all full circle, and I enjoy living life in this manner.
Thank you. Someone else who can speak to how your vision of mental health or your thoughts around mental health has changed professionally, and what kind of structures do we need to develop, and what would those structures include to better serve our community?
So I would say, first, so I started MPN because I noticed sitting in class, learning all of this stuff about mental health in college. I was like, wow, I should have known this when I was a kid, So that's what really made me want to start, my work with mental health and learning how important that advocates are. I think that also helps because a lot of people can be intimidated by maybe the wording that mental health professionals may use, and it may not even be, because of anything else, but just not understanding. Because if we're learning something new, you're not going to really understand, the definitions, the jargon and everything. But when you have an advocate that's speaking about their experience, what they've been through, how going to therapy has helped them, the process, that really changes a lot and really helps people feel like, okay, well, if they can do it, then I can definitely do it. So I would say that's one of the biggest things that I've learned working in the field, making sure that whenever we have, panel discussions or we're going to schools or things like that, it is important and very essential to have somebody that's very relatable, that's not just a mental health professional, but that can share a story.
Mhm.
I would add that for me, before I started my studies, I well, after I started my studies, I realized that, mental health services is just not talk therapy. It's more than that. Mental health professionals diagnose mental illness, and they come up with interventions to help people get better. Um, and so it's important for people to um, know the difference in the different types of mental health professionals. And then in this state, you know, uh, mental health professionals have to be licensed to provide psychotherapy. And so and so that was a perspective that changed for me once I got into the field. The other thing I've seen change in the field is payment sources. I think that makes it really complicated. You're kind of at the whim of, your insurance company. I'm a member of a big HMO locally that, outsources mental health services, and it could get a little complex for people sometimes. But being a student, you it's kind of simplified. You go to your health and wellness center and ask for help. To navigate these systems, um, and then there are also community organizations that provide low or no cost mental health services. But that's the other biggest. But it's like, most things, whether it's medical care, dental care, or mental health services, they've gotten there are a lot of it's dictated by insurance, and that can get a little complex. But I would encourage people not to get discouraged by that. And there are a lot of community resources that that will help you get connected to a mental health professional, regardless of insurance status, no insurance, or no money, or whatever. But that's a big change that I've seen over time.
And I just like I would like to add, I'm a stats guy, and I think it's important that people know stats to understand, where we are. Because if you don't know where you came from, you don't know where to go. And so I'm gonna read a couple of stats, and then I'll go forward with the question. So a lot of people don't know that women are heads of the household in 30% of African American Black homes, compared to just 9% of white homes. In 2018, they did the numbers. 1 in 5 Black and African American people lived in poverty. And a lot of people don't even know. Reaching out past our community, over 3 million people worldwide have said they had some form of psychiatric disability. And I think one of the things with that helps our community, and we know, and it's been really a big push, is the spirituality and faith community working in together with mental health. I knew I went to Catholic school, and before it was just you had problems, and even in church, you go to the preacher, or you go to the priest, or you go to sister whoever, or deacon whoever, and they will pray with you, and you try to work it out, and you had terms, and you learn the terms. Oh, she has the blues, or you hear all these terms, and there's been a push that we should work together. And now I've seen that pastors and church organizations, they can actually say, you know what? There are some resources that I can provide to somebody in my congregation because you need some additional support. And I think sometimes in the African American community, you may think that they can't work together. And mental health in your faith can work in conjunction. You can also work with your therapist, work on your anxiety and depression, work through your cognitive behavioral issues, and also go to church, pray, and look for that type of healthy well-being. So I've seen that push where Black folks look for non-traditional stuff, right? Healers, medicinal herbs, right? Self-medication, priest, versus traditional therapists, psychologists. And so now that there's kind of a working together, even in the Department of Mental Health, one of the things that they say before you can even move on with your assessment is to really gauge their spiritual and religious needs. And that has been a big push, because in our community, that has been really a source of coping through all the years. Before anybody in mental health was trying to help us out, you can go to your neighborhood preacher and they'll pray for you.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I do recognize the challenges that sometimes we have in thinking that as Black people that we can do both, honor whatever our spiritual practices and traditions are, and also recognize the importance of behavioral mental health care. There are some organizations like Beam in this community, and also trying to do national work, psychoeducation, and a lot of peer support that's really bringing, disparate in the past parts together and looking at healing systems, right? So we're not just looking at the Department of Mental Health or private practitioners or traditional organizations that support mental and behavioral health, but kind of looking at it all as sort of a playing field to support our care across the lifespan. So thank you for adding that, and each of you bringing in your own nuance about this. One of the things, and I know that time is short, I want to be able to get a couple of questions from the audience. So I'm going to frame this last this next part of our question in this way. We talked about culture, we talked a little bit about history, but there's such a grind culture history, and it's maybe a cliche right now, but living in our society across generations. And so the question is framed from a student perspective here at Drew. How do we learn to rest and to learn to value self-care when the outer culture, the counterculture or culture is saying, don't rest, stay on your grind, keep it going? How do you reconcile that? And what advice would you give our students about the importance of self-care across their lifespan and professionally?
I would say that is something that I personally had to work on. So, just like you said, it is the culture. Like, you sleep when you die, you gotta work. And I had to tell myself, okay, enough is enough, like, because burnout is real. You cannot be your best self if you're dividing yourself amongst everything, family, friends, work, school, whatever. You leave no time for yourself, and you're not going to be able to be 100% at anything. So you're losing in the end if you're trying to be everywhere and do everything and not getting any rest. So, and even disconnect from social media. Like, sometimes you have to do that because you only see the highlights of people's life. You don't see the struggle, the studying, I only got $50 in my account, I got to pay this. Like, you don't see any of that on social media, but you see the trips, this and this and that. And it makes you feel like, oh, I'm behind. When actuality, people are putting on a show. But, sometimes that really does, affect your mental health because the people always want to compare to the next person. So I would definitely say mute your social media, take a break from that, get you some rest, make sure that you prioritize hobbies, because that's very important. Even if it's watching your favorite show, that's something that I'm continuously working on right now. So yeah, that's what I would say.
I had priorities when I was in graduate school. They weren't always, I didn't always stick to them, but the priorities were um, social time, um, exercise, and of course, schoolwork, and those three things. And surprisingly, I was able to maintain most of them most of the time during my graduate school, and I still do, and I find that, you know, without a healthy mind, without a healthy body, I'm not very successful at what I do. And you know, having those things, healthy body, healthy mind, makes me more successful. And so, you know, I think it's just important to make time for those things, to take care of your physical and mental health, what in whatever ways um, you choose. And so for me, those are priorities to make times for, and my mental health really means, you know, spending time with friends and you know, and taking care of you know, my physical health. And so I would really encourage students to really make those a priority.
Yeah, I would just add that stress literally can take you out the box. It has an impact on both our physical and our mental health. And a lot of consequences of untreated mental health is what? Reduce your current level of functioning. So you were here, now you're there, right? Your chances of living a healthy, productive lifestyle, right? That goes down. And then increase acts of impulsive behavior, like you're doing stuff and that's unproductive. That's going to get in the way of you kind of living a healthy and productive lifestyle as a student. So, how to prioritize your mental health? Because here are some of the things that you may go through, right? Grief and loss. You may experience that during the pandemic, through your lifetime. My grandmother used to always say, the older you get, you go to more funerals and less weddings, right? Financial problems, unemployment, schoolwork. So it's really important to prioritize your mental health. And some of the suggestions I have is practice self-care, emotional care, and mental health care. So, what is self care? It's to support your physical, your mental, and your emotional well being because you have to take certain actions to make sure that you're going to be healthy. Meditation, right? Spending time outside, journaling, writing about some of the good things that you've been doing, some of the positive things that you're doing, and some of the things that you've been struggling with so you know how to attack them in the future. Stay connected. Don't isolate if you're feeling a certain kind of way, right? Connect with your family, with your friends. Also, if you're feeling overwhelmed by others or outside of what you're doing, say no. It's okay to say no and take care of yourself. You don't always have to say yes. Laugh a lot. Studies show that laughing what reduces stress. And last, make time to rest, and recover. If you are at night, turn that cell phone off, turn that tablet off, turn that computer off at least 30 minutes before bedtime, because a lot of people don't know those lights stimulate your brain and you turn it off and you find yourself up another hour on the 30 minutes you're trying to go to sleep on. So just some small suggestions for students.
Thank you for framing that for us. Some of the comments that were mentioned earlier. Kirsten, I'd like to give you a minute to kind of respond if you'd like before we go into questions. We've got 3 questions I think it's important for you all to get to.
Sure, I would definitely agree with everyone that just spoke on the topic of self-care. As we know, and we've been told that you can't pour into something if you're empty, right? So one of the things that I like to ask within my trainings is, when's the first time you've heard of self-care and how did you learn about self-care, right? And we realize when people are answering that question, a lot of the times is they didn't hear about self-care or actually learning what the term meant until they got older. The first thing they knew about self-care was sort of like pampering, right? I used to watch my mom get her nails done or put her makeup on in the mirror, things of that sort. I would highly recommend that people research and learn about the 8 areas of self-care. There's more to just resting and relaxing. You have to take care of your physical, your psychological, your emotional, your social, professional, financial, and spiritual. All of those things align and come into full circle when you're talking about holistic self-care. So it's important to do all of those things and just unplug and tap in with your feelings and emotions. That is very important. Don't run from them. Don't hide from them. Check in with yourself on a daily basis if need be. Wake up every morning and before you grab your phone, give yourself 3 words of gratitude. 3 things that you're grateful for before your feet hit the ground every morning. And that can change the trajectory of your workday and your personal day as well. And I would highly recommend, if you guys are already not, follow the NEP ministry on social media. They are very good at promoting what it looks like to take space away from everything and allow it to be okay. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to have a day off and do what you need to do for you so that you're able to present yourself to the world in a better space.
Thank you all for those practical tools. I must tell you, being true to the university that we're with, we do have a question that asks, that speaks to this idea of white supremacy embedded in our approaches to health and wellness. And so the question is, are there any psychological theories or practices not centered around white supremacy? And then the example they give is Freud. Just as we kind of move on to the next question, just a soundbite from a couple of you.
Yeah, that's true. My research is actually international psychology, and I'm working with Black men in Brazil, and being trained like in the Western Hemisphere. You're correct. You know, we're trained that the way we see mental health is really the way it's supposed to be, and there's so many cultural aspects to getting healthy and getting better. I mean, you have the East-West, right? You have China, but you know, in Brazil, it's really about community and accessing your faith and managing with your family members, and even things like drinking tea, relating back to the environment. So there's so many things that are out there outside of, you know, kind of how we see it, because here in a Western point of view, it's kind of like the symptoms come from within. But for Black folks, if you've been traumatized all these years, that has an effect on how I'm going to see what's happening, and it's going to affect how I'm going to interact with others and in my work. So it's important to kind of look at other ways of feeling better and getting better. And some of that is mindfulness, meditation. Some people drink tea, medicinal herbs and stuff like that. So there's a lot of literature out there to speak of, not just Freud and Cogby.
Thank you. Appreciate you
Yeah.
saying that. There's one other question that we have just a little bit of time for. There seems to be a conflict in the classroom where, you know, professors are saying to students, like, if you have time to rest, you have time to study, as if there's sort of like, you know, you can only do one or the other. Does any one of you have any advice to also faculty members who might have that perspective, and how to get them to think differently?
I think um, uh, we really have to figure out ways to recharge our batteries. And I don't know where that philosophy comes from, that you have to be doing, you can't do one or the other, or how the question was phrased. But um, I think it's necessary, at least like for me, and I found it necessary to really recharge my batteries, because, if I'm taking care of me, then I'm able to do the homework and I'm able to focus in class. Because if I have stuff going on, I'm just not paying attention. So I think that there's room for both, for study and self-care.
Okay, thank you. I recognize that we are probably just about 12:59. So, we'll have a little after hour for those who can stay. I don't really mean a whole hour. I just mean like you can stay on a few minutes if you can. But I do want to, on behalf of Shaw Student Health and Wellness and Charles Drew University, I'd like to thank you all for coming and sharing yourself and giving your time, and also just to commend you on the work that you're doing. The fire lives within you, and you're doing it to share with others in so many different ways. So, and for the health and wellness of the Black community and the community at large. So, I want to thank you all. If there's one final thought that you'd like to share, just or word that inspires you or would inspire our students, just before you sign off, I sure would appreciate it. And for those of you who would like to stay just for 5 minutes or so for sort of after our question, please feel free to do so.
Sure, I would just leave it with, just make sure that you are definitely, we spent a lot of time on self-care, which is super important. So make sure that you are taking care of yourself. I remember one of the questions that was asked to me in my interview to be in my doctorate program is, what do you do for self-care? And I thought that, well, what do I do for self-care? So maybe you should ask yourself that question, because maybe you haven't even thought about it. So, think about that, write that down, and make sure you put yourself first.
I would say to the faculty, use empathy and not arguments, because you have to really do an honest assessment of your students and create a safe and welcoming environment. And it's okay to help them as future leaders, right? As future healthcare professionals, they're going to have to see people who are going to be struggling with balancing multiple things. So finding a sweet spot where you can do what you need to do, and importantly, take care of yourself. Because, my mom always said, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of nobody else. So I would say 3 areas are important: physical health, make sure you're exercising, you're eating right; mental health, making sure you're kind of taking care of those rest opportunities, those opportunities to take breaks, and finally, emotional self-care, right? If you got a lot of drama in your life and things that are going on, try to get a handle on them sooner than later.
Thank you. Anyone else before we go?
I would like to close out with just letting everyone know that life is an ongoing process, right? There's always humps and hurdles that we have to go through. The important thing is knowing how to grow through them. Not actually going through them, but actually growing through them and learning how to turn that experience into a healing experience for your life. Just being aware of your surroundings and who you truly are, sticking to who you are is truly important. And just learning your triggers and your emotions so that you are able to know when you need to move from things, when you need to take a step back, and knowing what's causing the emotions that you are going through are very important as well. Learn how you want to be treated so that you are able to treat others, such as your professors, how to deal and treat you in return.
Thank you. Okay, David, last words?
Yeah, I will just say this, and it's already been said. I'll just add to it that, as I've gotten older, I've learned I've gotten better at deciding what's important. I get a lot of we get a lot of stuff thrown at us. People want us to do this, do that, and and so I've gotten better with deciding what's important, and I don't have to do everything, and I think that's important it was important for me to learn.
Thank you all. I sure appreciate you being here today. I know some have to go. It's about 1:04 now, 1:04. Please, those that can stay, if there are additional questions that I think maybe we might have one that we want to take offline. But thank you so much on behalf of the Student Health and Wellness Program. May you continue on in your work and be blessed in all that you do.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us, honestly. Thank you, panelists. Did a good job.
Yes, pleasure
Nice meeting
speaking
you
with you
all.
all.
It's nice meeting you
seeing
guys.
Yes, thank you so much. And this is recorded so we can share it with our campus. And also, if for the panelists, if you want to share it within your networks, we can also, provide that to you so you can share it as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
Sarah.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you all.
I will say we do have an internship volunteer program at MPN. So if you would like for me to send that information over, I can do so.
Okay, awesome. Yeah,
Okay, I'll just email it to you.
thank
Hey,
you.
successful.
Yes.
Janina Daniels is a family member. So yeah, tell her
great.
Cherie reached out.
Okay, I will.
Okay. All right.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, bye.
Thank you.